Welcome to Snooze with Sam. Scottish sleep stories, guided meditations, and ambient soundscapes. This is a tale inspired by The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. You are a hobbit by the name of Baggins, living in a quiet corner of Middle-earth called the Shire. You have lived your life quite contently for many a year, but on one sunny evening, your whole world begins to change in a manner you could never have imagined. Perhaps I may have something to do with that. But what would a poor old man by the name of Gandalf have business with a hobbit for?
Well, whatever it is, ain't no one doing anything or going anywhere without my saying so. Isn't that right?
Samwise Gamgee, there's nothing yet that you know of. I would not be so hasty. Well, whatever happens, you are going to be taken on a marvellous and immersive adventure through the kingdoms of Middle-earth, and no doubt you will come across many characters, some friend and some foe.
Wait, what about Smeagol? Does he get to go with the hobbitses?
We'll see, Golm. We might come across you later. So, as always, when you are quite ready, lie back, take a nice deep breath, and enjoy this story, The Shire. Chapter 1: Seeking a Baggins. The chorus of birdsong, combined with bleating sheep and mooing cows, made up three of an acoustic quartet along a narrow country lane. The fourth and most prominent sound came in the form of a small donkey-drawn cart, wobbling its way across the uneven soil. The donkey was not alone, however, as holding the reins was an elderly, bearded gentleman, topped with a large, pointed hat, and draped in grey robes. Beneath the sunshine of high noon, the pair crossed the farmlands of East Farthing, through the hamlets of Whitfurrows and Bywater, stopping only for supplies where necessary. Eventually, they passed an ancient, old wooden sign with crudely painted handwriting, which read, Hobbiton, 2 5/8 leagues. They were on track, and would be at their destination by the fall of evening. In some form of syncopated rhythm, with the clack of hooves, the old man hummed along quite merrily through the picturesque hills of the Shire. The Shire was a curious little place, filled with curious little people. Nestled within the northwest of Middle-earth, in the kingdom of Arnor. On face value, it was a beautiful, fruitful countryside, lined with wild woodlands, dotted with occasional crops, and simply contained within a world of its own, untroubled by exterior influence or politics. The latter was certainly true, that's for sure. Not a lot could disturb this place and its people from their peaceful existence. 20 miles away, a war might be brewing, but the vast majority would remain far more concerned about the season's sprouts coming under siege from greenfly. Speaking of the Shire folk, these diminutive people were commonly referred to as hobbits or halflings outside of the Shire. For thousands of years, these kind and loving souls had settled within this quaint little corner of Middle-earth, and largely kept themselves to themselves. With rolling hills, fertile earth, and enough goings-on to keep even the nosiest of Parkers occupied, the hobbits found little reason to ever leave. Standing, if you could even call it that, at anywhere between 2 and 4 feet tall, the pace of life for a hobbit was naturally slower, with only little legs to carry them. But however short they might have been in height, they certainly made up for in moral stature, intuition, and occasional pugnacity, the latter usually resulting from their questionably healthy thirst for ale. They dressed formally, but practically nonetheless, with all combinations of velvet jackets, cotton or linen waistcoats, and baggy, half-length trousers being the norm for the gentleman, whilst lady hobbits frequented fitted bodice dresses, complete with petticoats, and always showcasing a broad spectrum of lovely, vibrant colours. But despite their timeless and elegant dress sense, no hobbit ever wore anything on their feet, which in themselves were quite large and hairy in proportion to their stature, definitely more so than any man, elf, or dwarf. The village of Hobbiton was a very busy, down-to-earth sort of place. One of the largest settlements in the Shire, it was the market and social hub for many a hobbit. In every direction, livestock was herded, goods were bartered over, and yards and forecourts were swept and tidied. Over by the Green Dragon Inn, puffy, red-faced men brandished tankards of half-drunk ale and brandy, and many a drop spilled from merry cups. Songs were sung, laughs were exchanged, and fragile business deals were struck over one too many drinks. Despite the evening being only young, there were already a few ale-stricken lumps strewn across bales of hay nearby. For the most part, however, the village of Hobbiton bustled about its usual happy self. The rickety and squeaky donkey-drawn cart of the old man wheeled through the village entrance. Initially, no one took much notice. Folks from all over travelled here regularly enough. However, after a few moments, the odd hobbit eyebrow raised. Conversations between friends tailed off, and people stopped sweeping the cobbles a mere moment too long to simply be taking a break. Still, the old man whispered his companion along and deeper into the village. Soon, half of the village was looking at the old man in quizzical wonderment, like they couldn't quite believe what they were witnessing. Many hobbits simply shook their heads, muttering, and continued on with their preoccupancy. The old man pulled up his cart alongside the arch bridge by the river. He took hold of his staff, dismounted, and tied up the donkey, all while whispering soothing words in its ear to keep it calm. Aware of the dozens of eyes on him, he wandered over to the Green Dragon Inn, hat tipped low for privacy, and stooped inside the very low doors. Once inside, a wall of stale ale odour and humid bodies struck the old man like an anvil, but he didn't so much as flinch. Towering over the surrounding hobbits, he instead made for the bar and made eye contact with the barkeep. The hobbit, a middle-aged, ruddy-faced hobbit, swept on over, noting the old man's wordless summon. "Good afternoon. What can I be doing you for?" "If you will pardon me, it is not an ale nor brandy that I seek. I was wondering if you might tell me where I could find a hobbit by the name of Baggins. It is a matter of urgency, I must assure you. I would not ask otherwise.
Hold on a second. Gandalf. Gandalf the Grey. Is that really you? Well, blow my trumpet. I've not seen a wizard like you around these parts in 40 years or more.
Yes, I suppose it has been a year or two since I last ventured through these parts of Middle-earth. But I can assure you that it is not for the lack of warm hospitality.
Well, I should hope not. Now, you ought to be careful, Gandalf. I've heard rumours of funny-looking fellows snooping around the Shire lately. Last sighting was over east by Buckland and Brandywine. Dark hooded folk, they say, rarely leave the shadows. Some say they're looking for something.
Yes. It is the unfortunate truth that I fear there's a darkness stirring in the east. Something is unsettling me.
The barkeep suddenly looked rather uneasy and a little anxious, taking a step back. It is not every day that a wizard strolls through the Shire, not least with confirmation of some suspected shifting forces. Gathering himself, the barkeep stood stoutly and puffed up his chest a little.
Well, we don't want no trouble here, that's for sure. Hobbiton's been lovely and quiet of late. When I speak on everyone's behalf, when I say we'd quite like it to stay that way. So if it's trouble you bring, we certainly aren't interested, and I politely ask you to take it elsewhere.
Oh, do calm down, my friend. I bring neither you nor your in such trouble. You Northtricks always been such warriors. I can assure you I would bring you no harm should my life depend on it. I'm simply looking for the whereabouts of Baggins.
Oh, I'm sorry, Gandalf. I don't mean to snap. Just makes me nervous, that's all.
It's quite all right, my dear. Now, if you please, Baggins.
Right, Baggins. He lives in a smile called Baggin, up on the hill on Bagshot Row. He's usually finishes work about now, to be fair. Probably won't be long before he's home.
Thank you, Mr. Took. Both your information and your kindly cooperation have been very valuable. I shall leave you and your loyal patrons in peace. Good day.
That'll do. And, mind your head on the way out, Gandalf. You're a little taller than us hobbits.
Very obliged. Thank you.
Oh, and Gandalf, you sure you don't want a pint? Keg's pretty much gone off anyway.
No, thank you. I'm quite sure.
And with a wry smile, Gandalf made for the door from which he came and left. Chapter 2. An Unexpected Guest. When a heavy knock came from the front door, you straightened up from your stoop in a mixture of puzzlement and disgruntlement. Didn't everyone know that a Thursday evening was your time for housekeeping and sweeping? No one ever disturbed you during this hour. You paused your breath and waited, not moving an inch, almost willing the breacher of the peace to go away. After a moment, the knock returned. Clutching your broom with both hands, you sighed with irritation at the mere fact they had not left, but instead persisted to wish someone to answer the door. The audacity was rather alarming. Stomping through to the foyer of your little house, eyes fixed on the round front door, you paused a moment more before finally speaking.
Who goes there? What do you want?
I am seeking the whereabouts of one Hobbit by the name of Baggins. I wish to speak with him.
You bit your lip and tapped a foot in mild perplexion. Who was this person? You did not recognize the voice.
I say again, who goes there? If you open the door, you shall find out. See if you're just another charitable do-gooder or a long-distance relative wishing to reconnect, or some other form of saint, patron or beggar. I do sincerely wish you would all just leave me.
Good morning.
What do you mean? Do you wish me a good morning, or do you mean that it is a good morning whether I want it or not? Or perhaps you mean to say that you feel good on this particular morning? Or are you simply stating that it is a morning to be good on?
All of them at once, I suppose.
Quite.
Is there something I can help you with?
That remains to be seen. I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
An adventure? No, I don't imagine anyone west of Bree would have much interest in adventures. Nasty, disturbing, uncomfortable things. Make you late for dinner. That kind of thing, you know? Okay. Good morning.
To think that I should have lived to be a good morninged by a belladonna took sons if I were selling buttons at the door. I beg your pardon. You've changed, Master Baggins, and not entirely for the better.
I'm sorry, do I know you?
Well, you know my name, although you don't remember I belong to it. I am Gandalf, and Gandalf means me.
Gandalf?
Not Gandalf the Wandering Wizard, who made such excellent fireworks. Old Took used to have them on Midsummer's Eve. No idea you were still in business.
And where else should I be?
Where else?
Well, I'm pleased to find you remember something about me, even if it is only my fireworks.
Well, suppose you better come in. Tea?
Thank you, and yes, I would be grateful for the offer.
Pottering through the house towards the kitchen, you glanced back to notice the wizard stooping heavily beneath the low-slung wooden beams of the house. He did bump his head on occasion, but you pretended not to notice. You filled the kettle from the spring in the corner of the room and sat it atop the wood burner, which had been on all day. Gandalf took a seat at the dining table, but despite his best efforts, he looked nothing short of a giant placed upon a child's chair. With knees tucked close to his chest, he doffed his hat and placed it on the table. You did find it strange that the wizard had particular business with you, and were a little concerned. A very friendly soul he may have been, but there was a sincerity in his eyes which alluded to something perhaps not so pleasant. Handing him a mug of tea, he graciously received it and took a sip. You joined him on a seat at the table yourself, clutching your own tea with both hands, letting the warmth penetrate your fingers. So, Gandalf, this adventure. I still don't like the sound of whatever it is you wish to discuss, but I suppose you're going to tell me anyway whether I like it or not.
You would be correct in your assumption, though I wish the context of my coming to you was to invite you upon a well-deserved holiday, but alas, it is not the case.
As he said this, the grey wizard's face dropped slightly, and the shadows beneath his eyes seemed to darken. There was something which troubled this man, and an anxious feeling in your stomach told you that it was not good news. You took another sip of your tea. However, it was more of a nervous impulse, rather than a desire to quench one's thirst. So what is it you wish to tell me?
The matter concerns your uncle, Bilbo.
Dear old Bilbo. Whatever about? How do you know him, by the way?
Oh, me and old Bilbo go back a very long way. He and I, too, have had the odd adventure over years gone past. Did he ever tell you about the lonely mountain Erebor?
Not entirely sure, to be honest. He did say that he went on a trip with some friends in his youth, but he never really does share too many details about his life. He is a rather private person, you see, and quite grumpy these days too, I might add.
Yes, he is rather. Though you do resemble his character more than you may care to admit.
Gandalf said this with a stifled smile through sipping his tea. Again, you pretended not to take any notice of his gentle teasing, but instead got up and busied yourself in the kitchen and offered him more tea. He politely refused.
So what is it you know of Bilbo, then? Have you seen him recently? He's been taking hospice in Rivendell in recent years, I think, after amicable relations with the elves. I can't personally imagine anything worse, living so far away, leagues from the Shire. He does occasionally return, but it is the usual that we write. I don't think I've seen him in a couple of years now. Anyway, I'm rambling. Is he okay?
Yes, old Bilbo is fine. I suppose my concern lies not with Bilbo himself, but something in his possession.
You didn't know what Gandalf could be referring to, and he saw it in your expression. In the eyes of the great wizard, all he saw was an innocent and relatively contented hobbit, and one whose sole existence had not ventured out with the Shire for more than an inch. Such a simple and sheltered life was it that the hobbits lived, he almost envied you. But the greatest thing he saw was a hobbit whose life he was about to upturn. And for this, he felt a deep and sombre pang. It pained him, but he believed it to be necessary.
My dear Hobbit, I can sense a stirring in the east. Something lurks in the shadows of that which I cannot see. At night, I see fire, death, and suffering, but for reasons I am not sure. I have seen evil wander in the shadows of places it is not welcome, and a force darker than deepest night crawls through my thoughts. I fear that ever since the battle of the 5 armies, Mordor has shifted. In recent years, the races of men, dwarves and elves have been in rare peace, with little political exchange. However, I feel this is precisely the reason that the wretched place stirs. The storms above Mordor grow more foul and turbulent by the hour.
Unconscious of your body, you sat, eyes wider than normal, hanging on every one of Gandalf's words. Your dry throat spiked, and so you remembered to sip your tea.
I took my concerns with me upon my last visit to the Tower of Isengard. Here, however, I sensed a change in the head of the White Council and my friend, Lord Saruman. The White Wizard consulted the tower's Plantir, a crystal ball able to communicate with others like it. He spoke of rising darkness and a power unable to be stopped by any force, mortal or otherwise. But he said it with a change in his voice, and a look in his eyes which I did not recognize. My dear Hobbit, I fear the darkness calls to him, and he may be easily influenced by the Dark Lord Sauron. I sense that Sauron seeks to rise again, but this time I do not know what will stop him before it is too late. But there is one thing I know for sure, Master Hobbit, and that is that we must leave the Shire at once, bound for the elvish sanctuary of Rivendell.
You didn't know what to say or think. The old wizard wildly stared into the distance, thoughts clearly churning. It was disconcerting to see someone so wise and powerful share such personal accounts of one's prophecy. It was clear he had made up his mind about what needed to happen, and that he wished to involve you. But you still didn't know why. You felt nervous, sweaty, and deeply unsettled. You couldn't quite wrap your head around what Gandalf was saying. And then you thought,
But why, Gandalf? Why Bilbo? Why me? Why must we leave the Shire? Have you ever heard of the 9 Rings of Power, my dear Hobbit?